In this episode of Conducting Pills, we'll move to the epic orchestration and imagination of Richard Wagner in an analysis of the overture to his Tannhäuser. Hi, I'm Gianmaria Griglio, I'm a conductor and a composer, and welcome to this new episode of Conducting Pills, a series where we look into a classical piece or a part of it and outline its structure and phrasing, orchestration and harmony, with the bonus technical tips for conductors. I want to take a second to thank my longtime supporter, Dr. Akira Robinson, and to remind you that on my Patreon page you can find the full episodes of Conducting Pills and the extra episode tackling technical aspects on top of the live sessions and many other Patreon perks. Now, let's begin. Without going into too much details about the opera per se, let me just point out a couple of things. Tannhäuser is one of Wagner's greatest successes and one he was unsatisfied with his whole life. His wife Cosima noted in her diary on January 23, 1883, 3 weeks before Wagner died, he says he still owes the world Tannhäuser. The opera was written in 1845, had a very different version for the Paris debut in 1861, and was revised again for Vienna in 1875. The overture bears Wagner's signature in the use of the leitmotiv, those themes or musical motives that throughout the opera are associated with a certain character or emotion. As a matter of fact, the theme that closes the opera also opens it. We've seen something similar in the overture to Mozart's Don Giovanni, which you can find right here. The overture opens with a chorale in a piano dynamic. A warm sound coming out of clarinets, valve horns and bassoons introduce the pilgrim's motive that will close the opera. If you look next to the tempo marking, you'll see additional instructions in German, not dragging, walking movement. And underneath the single parts, he writes sehr gehalten, very held. Wagner places these instructions for the conductor and for the players all along his works, something that Mahler will inherit and take to the next level. And what follows the Pilgrim's Hymn? The remorse motive with its uncertain chromaticism. The cellos played first, followed by the violins. This is Tannhäuser, remorseful for having left the world of men, and Elizabeth for the pleasures of Venus. A brief bridge takes us back to the Pilgrim's motive, in fortissimo this time. There is another thing to notice here. The violins part, which could seem like a simple, so to speak, counterpoint in triplets, was called the Pulse of Life by Wagner himself. And we'll find this motive along the overture and the opera times and again, adding great excitement to the mix. The remorse motive returns, interjected by the Pulse of Life, and in a circular form we go back to the Pilgrim's motive with the exact instrumentation of the opening. Time to get acquainted with Venus. The Allegro introduces the bacchanal motif. It's lively, full of energy, announced by the violas. Notice Wagner's instruction: begin very softly, make a crescendo only later. And also how the chromaticism in the top line relates to the remorse motive. This whole section is in fact made up of different segments that interlace each other. A few bars into the Allegro and we get a second segment. And the poco ritenuto, with its luscious chromaticism, introduces a third segment, followed by the 2 bars answering the first segment at the beginning of the Allegro. The first segment returns, followed now by a different answer in the oboe and clarinet. And the un poco ritenuto shows all the lusciousness of the Venus mountain. The descending chromatic motive in the violins is countered by an ascending chromatic scale in the cello's sextuplets. And everything is enhanced by the dynamics, fortepiano, crescendo, accents molto espressivo. Excitement increases, leading us to a tempo primo with the recommendation to not rush, nicht eilen, where we hear the adulation of Venus' theme. It's the same theme that later on Tannhäuser will sing to Venus accompanied by his harp. Here it almost sounds like a march. It's bright, energetic, and listen how broad it becomes in its second phrase. It's larger than life, sung out by the violins and part of the woodwinds. The excitement keeps growing in a modulating progression of 2 bars. Reaching letter C, where one of the previous segments comes back and transforms itself into another modulating progression. Once it peaks, it slowly calms down. The first motive we heard in the Allegro pops up, again in the violas, but now the answer in the woodwinds is of a different kind. All the different pieces come together like in a gigantic puzzle. The music slows down and we're introduced to yet another theme, the love spell. This will be used by Venus to try and lure Tannhäuser back into the pleasure of the mountain. Now look at the orchestration. It's ethereal with the violins split in 8 parts and no other strings, while the theme is sung by a nictitating clarinet. The motive of the Allegro returns in the mellower version in one of the violin's parts. And who will prevail? The clarinet slips in again, but the violins don't give up. When we hear the violas and cellos, we know it's over. We're getting back somewhere, but where? Wagner makes a habit of deflecting the expected. A modulating progression makes use of one of the motives to build a long bridge to the adulation of Venus. After which, we cut into another motive. The full orchestra is here, including a triangle, a tambourine, and the cymbals. We are at letter F in the Dresden version. This is also the point in which the overture changes in the Paris version. At its peak, the full orchestra is used with all the percussions in trill. And what comes out after that? That motive in triplets we heard at the beginning in the violins accompanying the Pilgrim's Hymn. It's not in triplets here any longer, dissipating some of the tension. Faith will overcome Venus' seductive powers. Slowly and solemnly we return to the hymn, again played by the clarinet, the valve horns and the bassoons, and sustained by a deep trill of the timpani and long notes of the violas and cellos. Plus, of course, the violins with their topical figure. The remorse motive is back as well, but the Pilgrim's Hymn relentlessly takes over in the full orchestra, ending this grandiose overture. Right at the beginning, it's evident that the size of your stroke should be small in order to match the dynamic. It might be a little less evident when the same theme comes back at the end in full force. And yet, that's the trick. Once you've initiated the forte dynamic, reduce the size of your stroke. It will help you not getting tired, and it will help the sound of the orchestra. The inclination from a player when they see big gestures is to play louder and louder. And at one point, the roundness of the sound pays the price for it. So keep it small and shape the sound. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel by clicking the subscribe button right below the video and ring the bell so you will get notified every time a new video comes out. If you want to support this show monetarily, you can do so on my Patreon page, and if you're interested in conducting technique, follow my Facebook group. All the links are in the description. Let me know in the comments what you think about this piece and if you have any suggestions for future videos, and I look forward to seeing you next week with a new episode of Conducting Pills where we will go through Franz Liszt's Dante Symphony. In the meanwhile, please continue to enjoy music and be well. Ciao! Catch the triplets of the violas. They are the motor that reignites